Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Cottam. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM Show on WLFE-DB Radio Network. I'm your host, Jason. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Watch us live on WLFE-DB.com, on Strim TV under the Variety Unlimited channel, or on twitch.tv/the Bipolar DM. If you wish to get hold of us, contact the show. You can get us by email. The email address is thebipolardm@gmail.com, or visit our webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find more resources that we have available on indie writing, Dungeons and Dragons, and mental health, as well as links to our other live shows and other endeavors that we are doing, such as Dungeons and Dog Tags and Bipolar Dragons. Support of the show through Patreon is possible now, so if you are interested in supporting what we're doing and all the other things that we have going on, consider a monthly support with patreon.com/thebipolardm. We have merchandise for sale as well. If you go to our Facebook page, we have a little Facebook shop set up right there. We can probably do something else in the future, but right now we do have t-shirts and buttons and stickers available for the show. And if you go to facebook.com/bipolardm, that should get you right over there to where our store is. Bipolar DM is a proud supporter of Safe Space. If you're not familiar with what Safe Space is, it's that little button right over there. What that is, or what that means, is that this is a virtual safe space for everyone. So if you're in crisis or not, or if you're going through some rough times and you need somebody to reach out to, WLFE-DB.com is a safe space to go to, where you can find resources and contact and talk to somebody who will be there to listen to you. Now, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, we're not here to solve your problems or anything like that. We're just here to listen and to be support to you whatever it is that you're going through. In today's show, with it becoming so close to Valentine's Day, I figured I'd just do another one do a show on dating and living with bipolar, and kind of what that entails, and kind of disclosure. I'm single. I'm not dating anybody right now, and it's not necessarily by choice, but just because I don't have very much of a dating pool where I'm at here in Branson. I'm not really into the long distance thing or any of that other stuff, but there's just been a lot of reading and stuff like that, and been doing some research on this, and some also personal experience on, what it's like to try and date while having bipolar disorder, and when do you disclose about that, when do you talk about it, how do you talk about it, and other things. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before if you're in a relationship and you are wondering when to disclose your disorder, your disability, really the first thing you need to be taking in consideration is, what is it that you think about it yourself? What is your own opinion about your diagnosis, your illness? What do you think about bipolar? Because that really will shape, or can shape a lot, how this is going to go down. you really do want, before getting into a relationship, you really do need to come to terms with having bipolar. And I know from personal experience, it took me many years to accept the diagnosis, as that was what was wrong with me. And, it was a hard pill for me to swallow, to accept that I would never be able to go back into the military ever again. And that part of my life was over. But once I finally accepted the diagnosis, I started, working on being med compliant, sticking with the treatment plan, going to therapy, all that good stuff, and managed to get my symptoms under control, more or less. I do still have some symptoms and some problems going on, but for the most part, it's, my bipolar is well managed. So when you do come to terms with your bipolar and know what you think about it, then the question comes up to, when is it that you're going to be when are you going to disclose this? When should you even talk about it? And for me, because I'm so open about my diagnosis and the things that I do, I mean, my show's about it. The topic naturally comes up pretty early on in when I'm getting to know somebody, and so I'm very open and honest about what my diagnosis is, and how I'm doing. And but if you're not in that kind of situation, or or whatever, or you feel embarrassed about it, first of all, don't be embarrassed about having a psychiatric disorder of some kind. There's nothing wrong with you because of that. And it doesn't also have to rule your life. You don't have to be the one with the mental illness, or the crazy one, or whatnot. You learn to come to terms and accept, that this is a part of you, but it's not what rules you. And don't let your diagnosis, don't let your illness rule your life. You need to get it under control and manage it, because this is your life. And when you're talking with somebody about this in a relationship, you definitely want to do it before things get too serious. If you're talking about possibly dating, or cohabitation, or kids, or stuff like that, it's going to have to come up, especially because part of bipolar is part of it's genetic, and you have genetic markers that make you more predisposed to passing that on to your children. And so that is a real thing that needs to be talked about. And so you want to wait before the relationship turns serious. And one of the big tips I can give you as far as disclosure goes, and when it's time to tell somebody about this, is don't be a mind reader. Don't assume you know what they're thinking or feeling about what it is that you're telling them, because when you start doing that, you can start easily railroading the conversation and pigeonholing them into something they're not saying. So, if you don't know what somebody's thinking or feeling, ask them, especially when we're talking about something serious like mental health. And this is, I don't know, this is just kind of the way I've been trained, but I try and sandwich everything when I'm telling something that is potentially a game changer. In that I'm saying I try and put a positive before and after the news I deliver, such as, yes, I have a mental illness, but it's well managed, and I'm med compliant, and I've not had any hospitalizations in 2 years. I'm doing very well. You mix it in, putting some of the good stuff in there too. And But don't lie and don't sugarcoat it too. I mean, if you are going through some rough stuff, you don't have to share about everything that's going on. In fact, I advise against doing so. We have a tendency to overshare, and so my advice to you is, share what you're able to comfortably, but don't overdo it. And when you are sharing, just be honest about how you're feeling and what it is that you're going through. If this person's going to be with you through your mental illness, its ups and downs, you need to know early on whether or not they can hang with you. Because if they can't handle it, if they can't handle the ups and the downs and some of the sideways things that happen, you need to know that early on before you get too vested in somebody. And so, and how they react. There's a couple different ways how they can react to you when you deliver this kind of news. And it's, I would have to say, I come out of loss of words here, but how they can react, I don't want to say there's only three ways, but there's three typical things that we're looking at when somebody reacts to when we tell them that we have bipolar. The first, and probably the one that we are hoping for the most, is acceptance. They hear what you're saying, they understand, and they still accept you for who you are despite having this diagnosis. That's the best case scenario, and that's what we're hoping for when we communicate our diagnosis. And part of communicating that diagnosis and for somebody to accept it is to put forth a very clear message about what bipolar is, what it's not. Bipolar is a mood disorder. We have very high moods and we have very low moods. We have mixed moods where we're having both highs and lows going on at the same time. It's not psychosis. It's not dangerous. In fact, we're more a danger to ourselves than anything else. But be sure to communicate that fact, because the more likely the more likely outcome when you disclose is you're going to run into confusion, especially if somebody's not familiar with bipolar, or they've had a very bad experience with somebody who had bipolar. And there is that too. I've run into that a lot, where I've been with somebody and they said, oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend had bipolar and he never took his meds and he put holes in the walls and shit like that. So sometimes you're going to have to do a little damage control, especially if they've had a negative experience with somebody on bipolar. But they can react with confusion. And so part of dispelling confusion is through education. Direct them to, well-reputable websites and places to go to, such as the National Institute of Health or WebMD or Bipolar Hope. There's a lot of places that they can go to and get factual information about the diagnosis and what it is and what to expect. With bipolar, the things that you want to communicate to expect is, first is that, there's a difference in the type of bipolar that you have. Bipolar 1 arguably could be considered more severe, but really the difference is not in severity as much as how extreme you go. With bipolar 1, you can have such highs and mania and extremes that you're having hallucinations and delusions or paranoia. And you often have to be hospitalized for your own safety, or very rarely the safety of others. More often it's for your own personal safety that you're hospitalized when you have bipolar 1. And there are significant consequences due to impulsive behavior, whether that's spending sprees or risky sexual relationships with multiple partners, drinking, drugs, stuff like that. the life can be much a train wreck because of the symptoms. Now, bipolar 2, this one here is not so extreme as bipolar 1, but the symptoms of bipolar 2 persist much longer than they typically do with somebody with bipolar 1. And we usually don't go as high as our manic phases as somebody with bipolar 1, and that's called hypomanic. And hypomanic, probably the most marked difference is there's no, we don't have that risk of hallucinations or delusions or anything like that. But what we do have is a huge increase in energy and drive. Like we just drank 6 Red Bulls, done a line of Coke, and snorted meth. It just super energy driven, rapid speech, decreased need for sleep. That's a big sign right there when a manic phase is coming on for me. Is I don't sleep. I will go literally days without sleep, and or be up all late at night or something like that. And so bipolar, you have those extremes, but the trick is, or the key is to learn how to manage them, and so that they're not destroying your life or causing problems in your relationships. Part of that is a combination of medication and therapy. Medication is not for everyone, and unfortunately, it's a difficult thing to accept that you will have to probably be on these pills for the rest of your life. But with medication, though, comes stability. Now, medication is not a silver bullet. It will not cure everything and cure your problems, but it will at least level the playing field enough so that you can actually get your life back in order. And part of that is going through therapy and learning how to change the way you think and perceive the world around you, because problems with bipolar and also with borderline personality disorder is just a warped view of the world around you and how you perceive people and how you interpret emotions and stuff like that, and social cues. A lot of those things have to be worked through therapy, so you can step back and really think about what the other person might be meaning or saying, or what they're not saying, and don't read into it. Don't be a mind reader. Things that you want to talk about also with bipolar is your how it affects your life. Such as in terms like intimacy, when it's very common for hypersexuality to occur when somebody's hypomanic or manic. Work performance can severely be destroyed by bipolar disorder, especially during depressive phase, hospitalization, stuff like that. It can be very embarrassing to have to explain to your boss that you've been hospitalized or that you can't come into work because of whatever reason. Of course, you're protected under the law, that they can't know these things under HIPAA and stuff like that. You don't have to disclose these things to you. But in a way, though, you got to give them some kind of explanation, and you should not be ashamed of your diagnosis. It is something that you have to live with just as much as somebody who has a heart condition, diabetes, or an amputee or anything else. This is something that you live with, and it doesn't define you. But it can be affected a lot by things like work. Stressors at work can also trigger or exacerbate your problems, your symptoms. And it's also very difficult for us to hold down a job for very long sometimes. And that can put a lot of pressure on putting on financial support, and until the illness is well managed. Parenting. I could tell you what, I was a really bad parent for a while, especially during my lows and my depressive times, the worst of which lasted for more than 3 years. I lost 3 years of my kid's life that I'm never going to get back. But parenting while trying to hold yourself together can be really stressful and can it can have a lot of effect on your kids too. Let's be honest. My kids are going through therapy because of me. I have to say, and my illness, but that's a reality that we have to face. That I have to face. That mistakes were made. I did the best I could under the circumstances, but I was surviving. But the nice thing is, the hope that there is that, we don't have to just survive. We can actually thrive. And that there is hope with bipolar that, if you have it, you can still thrive with your life and find a relationship out there with somebody. But part of doing that, though, is that you're going to have to prioritize your own well-being. And that's probably one of the number one things. And I'm not talking about being selfish and doing selfish shit. Like spending sprees and stuff like that, telling yourself that you're taking care of yourself. But I'm talking about med compliance, therapy, treatment plans, the things that really matter to well-being, and not selfish wants and whims and stuff like that. So prioritize your well-being, and don't be afraid to take care of yourself first, especially when you're going through an episode. If you're going through a depressive episode and you need to stay in for a day or so, don't cut somebody off, but at the same time, don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I can't see you for a day or two because I'm having an episode right now, and it's just not a good time for me to be around other people. They're going to have to understand. And if they don't, fuck them. I mean, this is your life that we're talking about here. Just as much as somebody's saying, I'm sorry, my blood sugar's low right now, and so I can't go out with you or until I get it back up again. You're not going to force them to come on out, and risk their life. So take care of yourself first, and most importantly, find your chosen family. We can't choose the people that we're born with, but we can choose who our real family can be. And being very careful about who you allow into your life is so important, because when it comes to toxicity and toxic people, we absorb so much, and it's so overwhelming to our emotions. And so be very careful about who you find in your chosen family, who you choose to share your life with, your diagnosis with, and everything else. And I know for personal experience that my circle of friends is very small, and I'm okay with that. I got what I need. Of course, there are days that I wish I had more people I could talk to about some of this shit, but it is what it is. But I do know I have people out there I can talk to, and so, it's be careful about who you choose to be in your family. You be part of your family, and be wary of being codependents. We're very prone to that too, as codependency. A lot of our relationships in the past, the turbulent ones, we can see a lot of codependency in them. And so be aware of the signs and symptoms of codependency, and be careful. Both being on the receiving end and also on the giving end. And avoid those toxic people as much as you can. But sometimes it's going to be really hard, because these are relationships we're probably talking about that go on for years. And it's difficult to be able to cut those kind of people out of your lives, whether they're family members, close family members, maybe even a parent or a sibling. Having to cut them out of your life because of their toxicity towards you and in the how they're bringing you down. And so you need to be very mindful about, when you select who you allow into your life, and then also put a lot of thought into who you cut out too. And don't be afraid to do it. because sometimes we got to get rid of those toxic people if we want to have normalcy in our life. And another thing that's very important to do is to have relationship requirements, and I'm not talking about trivial things, but I'm talking about things like being positive, a positive person, being supportive. Yes, I do require that the women that I date have a job of some kind, not because I expect them to work, but just because I want them to have something to do with their lives, no matter what it is that they're doing, just have something that's going on in your life. But, have your own place, or if you at least have a place, have your own room, and be on the lease. But have a car is great too, but really you want people, but when we're talking about mental illness though, we really want people to be more into being understanding and being caring and stuff like that. And so look for having those requirements in your relationship. And remember, too, that relationships require work. I mean, they're going to require a lot of work. And so this is not like a passive thing that you can just get by with and just neglect. So this is kind of like a plant. You got to actively take care of it and water it and stuff. And anyways, let's go ahead and we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about relationships in bipolar, and then we're going to also talk a little bit about some other things going on in the bipolar DM world. So thank you very much, and here we go.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam! There you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
Welcome back to the Bipolar DM Show. I'm your host, Jason. And in today's show, we've been talking about, among other things, relationships and bipolar, and some of the tips about disclosure, talking about your illness and what it is, what it's not, but also making sure you take care of yourself, most especially when you are in a relationship, and not put so much of yourself out there that you are doing damage and doing harm to your own well-being. Yes, relationships take work, but they also shouldn't be slave labor. Part of relationships and working on them is having open communication. Especially when we're communicating our illness and our diagnosis, and things that we want to do is we want to be able to talk to our partner when we feel a mood shift coming on, so that they're not alarmed by any sudden change in your demeanor. Be open about having them be open with you, and notice when your mood is different, because there's also a lot of times that others can see changes in our mood when we can't. And part of being with that open communication is being honest. If you're having a severe episode and struggling with your symptoms, don't hesitate to notify your partner and ask for help when you need it. For example, if you're experiencing a depressive episode and don't feel like leaving the house, explain this to your partner instead of making up an excuse to stay home. Be very open about, with your partner when it comes to your diagnosis and your symptoms too. Talk about triggers and knowing what they are. Part of bipolar is becoming educated about it, and the first thing is educating yourself. This is the first thing you should do when you start a relationship with someone who doesn't know anything about bipolar, is to direct them towards resources that are very reputable so that they can read about it and do research of it themselves, be able to know about it yourself, that you can articulate it and explain it to them. Explain your triggers, the things that would set you off, and, from personal experience, things that they need to be avoiding, or situations or environments that are unavoidable but can be a trigger, and so they can be more understanding. And so triggers, talk about those, talk about your signs and your symptoms, whether it's depression and having, a depressed mood, decrease or increase in appetite, more sleeping, maybe less sleeping, so sleep disturbances of some kind, irritability, those kind of things can all factor into a mood shift. And so when times get tough, remember that this is just a condition. It's not the partner, not the person themselves. It's just something. It's the condition that's causing your frustration and not your partner. And take a break if you need one, if you're the other end of the bipolar relationship. Don't be afraid to say, go take a walk or something like that, or spend the weekend with family or friends or something like that, just so you can get away for a little bit. But take care of yourself. Plan ahead. Be a part of their treatment process. But as much as you're comfortable with. Now, what I'm talking about lifelong relationships. I'm not talking about casual dating. You certainly don't want to have somebody that you're casually dating, signing off on your HIPAA form and stuff like that. So, but no, we're talking about we're looking at long-term relationships. And part of that, if you're going to be in a long-term relationship with somebody, is that they need to be on board with your treatment plan and your safety plan as well, and be aware of it and be a part of it. If you're not familiar with a safety plan is where you, if you're in a crisis, an emotional or mental crisis, and you do not feel safe, you have places to go, people to contact. You got a first line of defense where you can go, and ultimately, you can always go to the emergency room if you don't feel safe, or that you might be a harm to yourself. So, don't be afraid to do those things. I've done it. I've checked myself into the ER in order to get help. And that's what they're there for. So, but having a plan for not if something's going to happen, but when. Let's be honest, my statistically speaking, I'm probably going to get hospitalized again sometime in my life. It's just going to happen. And when it does, I need to have a plan for it. Who's going to take care of my pets? Who's going to make sure everything's all right at my house? Stuff like that. And to include your partner in that, into your plans, it helps make them be a part of a solution and not another factor or another problem. And be honest. When I'm saying about be honest, be honest and be able to ask for help when you need it. And because if you can't ask for help, you're going to you might do something that everybody else is going to regret. So don't be so, so ashamed or any of that, those things to not ask for help. If you're feeling ashamed about your illness or about the symptoms that you're experiencing at the time, those things there, don't be ashamed of those things, and don't be afraid to talk about them to people. You'd be surprised how much they can understand. And know when to retreat and go to your safe space. It's very important for us, all of us, to have some kind of safe space to go to in our home or somewhere where we know we can be ourselves and be alone. And those safe spaces are extremely important to have for both partners, really. I mean, my safe space is my bedroom. Really, it's my entire apartment, but my ultimate safe space is my bedroom, though. Because I have a place I can retreat to and be safe and know that I am. And it's important for you to have one of those things, have that too. So, but, we talked about a lot of stuff over today on today's episode about relationships and stuff like that. I wanted to talk before we closed up a little bit about what's going on with some of our other endeavors that we're doing right now, such as Dungeons and Dog Tags. Dungeons and Dog Tags is my mission, and will now becoming our mission to bring Dungeons and Dragons to our veterans and active duty personnel. And part of our goal is to support our warfighters through gaming. And it's been a very important part of my life in these recent months, what we've been doing. We kind of divided things up into two phases. What we ultimately want to do is to have in-person gaming. But right now, before, being the pandemic and stuff like that going on, phase one was or is establishing online games, and that's what we've done. We've established games online for 7 days a week that we got games going on with players from around the world, active duty service members and veterans. And so we have that going on. And phase two is our commitment to starting in-person games, and that's on military bases, VA facilities, or wherever we can get games going. Right now, we actually starting off with helping out the 1835th CSOS out in the sandbox. They are starting some in-person games for the troops out there. And so we're taking donations right now for players' handbooks, monsters manuals, dungeon master guides, and dice that we can send out to them. We've already reached our goal on dice, and we're about 75% of the way to having our goal on players' handbooks and dungeon master guides and monster manuals to go out. But we're still looking for more donations as we help out in this endeavor. Another things that we're doing is that we're partnering with the Department of Dungeons and Dog Tags to start a live stream game with a all-veteran cast. And so we have that probably kicking off in March. First weekend in March would probably be what it is. I'm looking at the calendar, and I think March 5th is probably, March 5th or 6th would probably be our first episode that we're going to do. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So, we have an all-veteran cast, and the premise of the story, just a little bit of it, is that mind flayers or illithid, these creepy critters that look kind of like Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, have invaded Washington, D.C. and other major cities around the world. And our players are playing active duty soldiers and a campaign set in the near future. And so it's really been a lot of fun. I've been collaborating with another DM, working together. I'm not going to be DMing the game, but I'm a co-DM, helping out, and probably have a couple roles in there too. But that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And so that's one of our new things that we're doing. And in that, we got some transitions with Dungeons and Dog Tags that we're going to be making, getting things cleared, getting things set up. And so that's going to be some work, and hopefully not too bad on the growing pains. But anyways, that's what we got going on with that, Dungeons and Dog Tags. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Bipolar DM Show. I'm your host, Jason. You can watch us live at Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on WLFE-DB.com. Stream TV on the Variety Limited channel or on twitch.tv/The Bipolar DM. Listen to this show anytime, anywhere where you find your favorite podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Spreaker, we're on all kinds of stuff. And so we usually put this show up as a podcast, either later the night or within a couple days. If you want to get a hold of us, I have a comment, question, or topic suggestion, you can reach us by email at thebipolardm@gmail.com or visit our webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. And there you'll find links to our podcast that we do occasionally do, live stream shows that we have going on, links to our Twitch channel, and also resources on Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness. Thank you again for tuning in to the Bipolar DM Show, and remember, everybody, to take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.